Hey guys, MoiDawg here, and today we've got an exciting sneak peek at the next Foxhole update. Update 47. If you missed it, on Tuesday the devs sat down for about an hour-long dev stream to preview all of the new content, and although they warned that Update 47 wouldn't be a big one, I think when you see what's coming, you'll agree that these smaller changes are going to result in huge new ways to play the game. From new tech materials, weapons, vehicles, and even new ways to get around the map, this is going to be a good one. For the most part, Update 47 looks like it will be taking past gameplay updates and making them better, which in my opinion is one of the best ways to add new content, especially if it adds purpose for lesser used items in game. To kick it off, and while I don't know why this is considered small in the devs' eyes, prototypes will be completely different come Update 47. Currently, prototypes are typically not seen too often in game if they are the off-meta vehicles, since both factions like to focus tech trees and prototypes one specific way. And if there's something like a tank, they can't have their armor repaired, making it feel a little bit like a one-use item. With Update 47, the tech material cost to produce prototypes has been reduced, and you can build any vehicle prototype at a garage for only 100 BMATs if you have the kit, and you can repair the armor. Health and armor values have been reduced, so these prototypes will still be significantly weaker than the real thing, but hopefully this means we'll see more of these guys in the field. Additionally, to further encourage the use of prototypes at every tech level, a new tech material, copper, has been introduced for tank upgrades. Although we don't have too much information on this right now, the devs did specify tanks quite a bit, making it seem like there will be a real big break from iron and aluminum for much more advanced vehicles, especially if it can only be scooped by harvesters. I'm really interested to see how this gets implemented and can't wait to see the new tech developments for both factions. In addition to tweaking the tech itself, the devs have also adjusted a few quality of life items for players, with the first being the binocular speed to snap back to your player, which is extremely helpful since I can't count the number of times I've been killed standing up like an idiot as an enemy shoots me at point blank range. And if you think the model looks different, you're right. Binos will now be black instead of the yellow capped ones we have in game now. Another camera change is the implementation of the cinematic camera, which should make recording that much more immersive. It looks as if the current camera allows for almost a chase camera type feel, zooming in up close and at an angle to your player. It's great to see all the close-up details you might miss from the top-down perspective, but they did mention you wouldn't be able to fire in this mode, which I would really like to see. Being able to swap to this cinematic mode and pop a few rounds off yourself while everyone is fighting in the trench next to you would be really cool to see up close, but this is a great first step. Terrain is also getting an update in 47, and No Man's Land will now be slightly less painful than it has been in the past. Craters can finally be filled in with shovels, and with the trade-off being that there will be a lot more of them made, and they will be much closer together. Although personally, I like seeing craters on the battlefield as the war progresses. Sometimes, admittedly, they can be extremely frustrating to deal with, so I understand why we'll be able to fill them in. Still, it might be kinda cool to see if certain rounds like the 300mm storm cannon rounds could create such a large crater that they still couldn't even be filled in. Kind of like the giant craters we've seen in World War I photos. Either way, I'm still looking forward to see what the front lines will look like with this. Additionally, trenches will be getting some love to make them feel much better. If a trench is destroyed, it will no longer put you on that weird floaty trench model where you walk above it, and instead, dynamic trench husks will be created, allowing you to fight in, climb, and hide in trenches even if they're severely damaged. To make it better, if you wish to fill in trenches, that can now be done without repairing them, removing the previous pain of using BMATs to repair a broken trench fully, only then to edit it and then fill it in. Finally, trenches will also require sandbags and metal wire for upgrading trench lines instead of the current BMAT functionality. As someone who's been in a trench while an enemy edited the walls around me, I like this change, but thinking of the logic cost, I'm curious to see just how often they would be used on the fronts. Now, for the funner stuff. In Update 47, bipods are getting a complete rework, and if you've ever walked by a bipod and accidentally dismantled it by pressing E, or you couldn't properly use the bipod because you had to lug the ammo yourself, this update is for you. Bipods will now have a separate unique menu at the bottom of the inventory where you can pack the weapon up, preventing players from accidentally dismantling them. In this inventory, we actually have an inventory, and ammo can finally be loaded into the weapon itself instead of your person, allowing for multiple players to use bipoded weapons without worrying if you have ammo or not. And not only has the functionality changed, but we will also be getting 4 new bipoded weapons. The first 2 are 12.7mm heavy machine guns, the Colonial Lemonum Mark IV and the Warden Malone Ratcatcher Mark I. Additionally, the Collies will finally get an ATR of their own in the Typhon 12, while the Wardens will get their own version of the ISG, the Cutler Foebreaker mounted double-barrel RPG launcher. Although we don't know the exact differences between the weapons, it was mentioned that the Typhon may have a quicker rate of fire than the Warden ATR, but have a shorter range. So do expect all of these things to be slightly asymmetrical. Although not technically a bipod, we will also be getting a complete overhaul of the half tracks, with modular half tracks for both factions allowing for every type of weapon platform you can imagine. Want a double RPG half track? Sure. Want to zoom around with an ATR? No problem. I'm super excited to see this since it never really feels like half tracks are utilized that well in this game, although they were a massive staple of World War II combat. Now we'll be able to not just use various weapons to support infantry, but we'll also be able to transport that infantry as well, and half tracks will now have the ability to transport 4 people in the back. Moving on to slightly bigger vehicles, we will also get to see 2 new armored cars. The Colonial Gemini RPG car, which has 2 RPG launchers on the side, and the O'Brien V113 Gravekeeper, an anti-tank armored car for the Wardens, which fires an arced round to shoot over objects. The last big change coming is something that will completely change the way Foxhole is played. No, not trains. Bridges. We're talking about bridges. With all the focus on bridge fights, the massive week-long stalemates around these bridges, and the frustration that so many choke points exist all around the map, player-deployed bridges will allow for new ways to not only cross over broken bridges, but things like rivers or even ravines. In the video, it looks like 5 metal beams are required to create a bridge of any size that can then be adjusted just like sandbags or barbed wire. Once placed, you can also then extend the bridge by adding on to the end. Although we don't know how far you can make these bridges, the devs did state that they are quite fragile, so waterlogy can sail right through and destroy them. Additionally, although they can allow smaller vehicles like motorcycles and armored cars over, anything bigger will result in the destruction of the bridge as a whole. It's an absolutely awesome mechanic, which makes you think of the older World War II pontoon bridges. And since Foxhole is a sandbox game, I'm just so glad to see the devs giving players the tools to move around the map so freely. I'll definitely be checking out the dev branch to see if things like Logis and CVs can make it over as well. Finally, there are also some other changes, including faction-specific weapons like the Ahti Model 2 pistol, which looks fairly similar to the Finnish Lahti. Resupplying seaport and storage depots will also offer the ability to come in players just like base resupplies, which is really rewarding to backline Logi players. There will be a new economy scaling mechanic, which means factory queue speed should adjust depending on overall server population, and some new storm cannon changes, which will require storm cannons to settle for 2 full days before they can fire, and during that time, they show up as white on the map. Now, I'm not sure if this will completely change the storm cannon meta, and to be honest, I think I'd prefer if this popped up only if it was first spotted by a watchtower or maybe a listening kit, kind of like a hey, we spotted this on intel and now we know type of thing. But I'm interested to see how players respond to seeing a white storm cannon mark pop up on the map close to their front. Either way, it should be really interesting. We'll be getting the full patch notes when update 47 releases to the dev branch, but if you'd like to watch the whole dev stream for yourself, I've linked it in the description below. What are you most excited for in this next update? Half tracks, bipoded weapons, or are you like me and thinking of all the new ways that you could get into Fortress Tempest with the new metal bridges? Let me know in the comments below, give this a thumbs up if you liked it, and subscribe for more. And don't forget to check out the live streams at twitch.tv/MoiDawg, where I stream every weekday. But that's it for me. Until next time, peace.
I'm seeing a lot of word and bias calls in the chat, and it's obvious from my shirt that this is why we added this weapon in, because totally word and bias.